That story Hannah told today is one of my favorites. I think it's a favorite of both of us. I think it really underscores in a very explicit way how we are prone to carry stuff with us that we no longer need, that no longer serves us. And that leads me to wonder, well, why do we carry things around much longer than we should? Part of the reason, I think, is because the world is sending us some very mixed messages. Just think about pop songs. How many pop songs can you think of that are about holding on? Can you think of a few? Right? There are a lot of them. How many can you think of that are about letting go? There are a lot of those too. So no wonder we're so confused when it comes to deciding whether or not to hold on or let go. A lot of times during our childhoods, we've learned from our parents that when times are tough, we need to be strong. We need to hold on with all our might, never ever quit or let go. You know, we were schooled that, you know, being a quitter is a bad thing. You have to stick with whatever you committed to, whether we really like what we committed to or not. You know, and parents do say these things, especially after they've prepaid for all those piano lessons or the sports equipment and the uniforms, right? You have to stick with what you committed to. Sticking with it and holding on is seen as a virtue. And toughing out a bad situation, that's also seen as a virtue. You know, it shows that you have integrity, that you're as good as your word, that you're not, you know, one of those flighty, unreliable people. And toughing it out, you know, it's not even supposed to matter that if you're really miserable or you're being mistreated or your situation is ruining your mental, physical, or spiritual health. You have to be tough and tough it out. I think that's the really damaging part of holding on that we don't really talk about as much. So we've got the holding on, but on the flip side is the idea of letting go. And I think it's safe to say that all of us have found ourselves holding on really tight to a resentment or a frustration. And then when you go vent about it to your best friend or someone in your life, they just say, oh, you just need to let that go. Don't sweat the small stuff. Has anyone enjoyed being told that by their dear friend? No, because if it were that easy, you would have probably done it already, right? Again, that's my advice here. Don't say that to your friend. Don't tell them to get over it or just let it go. Hear them out, ask them some curious questions, and then let it go, because that's their decision on when to let it go. Because it's much, much harder in practice to let go of things. But being a person is really confusing, because we've got these counter virtues, the virtue of holding on and the virtue of letting go. What are we supposed to do? Well, I think you can pretty much guess what the answer is. It depends. It depends on the situation, which is the better to do. And sometimes discerning which is the better to do is what really needs to be done. Now, I'd say that there's some things we should hold on to no matter what. Almost. There's always an exception. I think it's good to hold on to our deepest values, to our hope, to our ideals. But again, that's somewhat conditional, because sometimes our deepest values and our greatest ideals are worthy of holding for a lifetime, but sometimes as we learn and we grow into our humanity, our ideals and our values change a little bit, hopefully for the better, right? Being a human being is an ongoing process of learning. So there are really not a whole lot of absolutes in what you have to hold on to. So how do we really know if we should be holding on or letting go? How do we prevent ourselves from getting it totally backwards, which is really, it's an easy thing for it to happen. I think it happens for a lot of us. People often tend to hold on to things that are no longer working for all those reasons I talked about before. Out of habit, out of security, out of the fear of the unknown, the fear of change. Now this is the part which I realized when I wrote it, it sounded like Jeff Foxworthy's redneck jokes, you might be a redneck if. Well, this is like, you might need to let go of something if. You might need to let go of something if your thoughts go to the past or the future more than the present. You might need to let go if the situation you're in causes you more pain than joy. Or when you expect or hope and plead for a person or a place or a situation to change and it doesn't, you may need to let go. When you become complacent, bored, or resentful, you may need to let go. Or when a pattern persists even though you tried to fix it, or when you feel alone or unheard or disrespected, when a situation is holding you back from growing and being who you want to be, all of these things you may need to let go. When you feel exhausted emotionally, spiritually, and physically, you may need to let go of something. When you have lost your passion and joy of life, that's a sign you may need to let go. All of these are signs that you may need to let go of something. And this art of letting go isn't a new thing. This is actually an ancient practice. Those here who are familiar with Buddhism or other Eastern thought, there's this concept of non-attachment. Non-attachment is all about letting go, not becoming attached in the first place or about letting go. It's this whole practice that has been developed around this because of the letting go is necessary, because we carry things with us that not only are not necessary, but sometimes they can really be harmful, the stuff that swims around in our heads. Things like old opinions, old wounds, negative thoughts, resentments, they can cause a lot of misery. And the Buddhists even provide us with antidotes. Of course, they're not easy or simplistic, but through meditation, through mindfulness and study, you can become more aware of this extra stuff in the mind or this damaging stuff in the mind and become aware of it and kind of work to get rid of it. There's a saying by a Buddhist teacher, if you let go a little, you will have a little peace. If you let go a lot, you will have a lot of peace. A lot of times we think of peace as something that will just arrive one day like the angels. Wah, peace. Peace is actually something we have to cultivate ourselves for it to be there. The writer Eckhart Tolle, who writes a lot about being in the present, he's figured out this reason why we maintain and create these false kind of problems, these things in our heads, things that really don't exist much outside of our heads that aren't good for us. These ruminations, that can be really distracting. He says we do this because all of those thoughts and things trapped in there, they give us a sense of our identity. How scary is that we derive our personal identity from all the junk that's unnecessary junk that's in our brains. But he says we're so identified with our miseries that giving them up feels like giving up part of ourselves. Again, very frightening, but I see that how this could potentially be very true. So he says by letting go of our unnecessary mental baggage, that's how we can begin to actually live freely in the present and see our lives and our role in our lives much more clearly. So today we are actually going to do a simple ritual to help in the process of letting go, to prepare ourselves for this new year by letting go of what we would like to let go of from last year. And by turning it into a communal practice, in a physical, tangible practice, that helps, right? That helps make it happen. Whether you believe in supernatural or not, just doing the process does make a psychological difference. So this ceremony is sometimes called the burning bowl. Sometimes it's called fire communion. But no matter what it's called, I think it is really good because we can do this within this supportive community, and we can actually formalize it and make it more tangible and real. But before we begin burning, which will happen at the end of the service, I want to share with you some hopeful words from Ralph Waldo Emerson, who was a Unitarian minister until he got too radical for even that. And he was a transcendentalist, and he and the other transcendentalists, one of their greatest influences was Eastern religion and thought. So this is what Emerson writes. He says, "Write it on your heart that every day is the best day in the year. He is rich who owns the day, and no one owns the day who allows it to be invaded with fret and anxiety. Finish every day and be done with it. You have done what you could. Some blunders and absurdities no doubt crept in. Forget them as soon as you can. Tomorrow is a new day. Begin it well and serenely, with too high a spirit to be cumbered with your old nonsense. The new day is too dear, with its hopes and invitations, to waste a moment on the yesterdays. So I say to that, may it be so, and blessed be. So now we are getting, as we get closer to the fun part of the service, when we all get to burn the thing we most want to let go of from last year, I'm going to be a little instructional here. If you didn't receive a little piece of note card on your way in or need something to write with, please raise your hand and someone will bring you whatever you're missing. And also, if you feel compelled, like it's not enough room on your card and you'd like a second card, we have plenty left, so and we'll have them out there too if you want to add. It's a small group here today. So, we'll have the offering soon, and during the offering time, in addition to making the offering, take some time to fill out your card. What you would like to let go of from 2021. It can be something very tangible, it can be a feeling, it can be a pattern of thinking or doing that no longer serves you. There are no wrong answers to these questions, and the answers are for you alone, so you really can't mess it up in any way. So, and also I invite everyone who is watching from home to participate as well. Write something down, find a piece of paper, then determine your favorite way to destroy it. The possibilities are endless. We have burning, we have flushing, we have tearing up, we have burying in the yard, we can barbecue, we can use the gas burner on the stove. Just be safe, that's all I advise. We usually do this burning ceremony. The last time we did it in person, we used magician's flash paper so we could burn indoors, and it's really cool stuff, very cleanly and quickly and safely. Unfortunately, when I took our flash paper off the shelf on Friday, I realized it had done its own magic trick and completely dissolved into nothingness. So we're actually burning real paper today, but in order to be safe, we have a fire bowl outside. So after the service, you're welcome to proceed into the foyer and then go out, take turns going outside to burn your piece of paper. The beautiful fire Glenn has built will actually help with the cold, the chilliness outside today as well. Unfortunately, we can't do a lot about the wind. All right, I think that is all the logistics of the burn.